Ahoy, mateys, and welcome back to... You want to say it?
Captain Keaton!
That's right, everybody. Welcome back to Captain Keaton. Today we are joined by a welcome friend of the show and a longtime guest. He's been here for every chronological Zelda release so far, minus the Philips CDI, which he will be back for. It's Corey from Maine-ly Retro. Welcome back, Corey.
Yeah! What's happening? Good to be back. Good to talk about another Zelda game. So, yeah, very excited.
Absolutely. So I am very excited to have Corey back as well and get his perspective. He's typically not a handheld gamer, but he does have experience with the game, which we'll get into in a bit here. Subscribe to Maine-ly Retro and stay tuned for more Captain Keaton Zelda content as well. Corey, can you tell the viewers what's going on over on Maine-ly Retro lately?
Not too much lately, really just working on the basement room, trying to get that ready. Going to use that as a game room kind of slash collection room, all kinds of things. So that's pretty much really what I've been doing. So one man thing right now. So only me working on it. So taking some time, but trying to put like a video out here and there occasionally. But yeah, so
awesome, man.
That's about it.
What's the goal for the basement?
Really just, we have a lot of stuff that's kind of congesting. We like to have this as an office area. And right now it's kind of like an everything kind of crowded in, like you have to make your way through a path kind of room. So all the stuff will go there. Like it will be nice. Games, instruments, records, and some other things as well. So it'll be an organized mess, which will look nicer than this mess.
When I was a kid, I was always jealous of my friends who had cool gamer basements. I always had a flooded basement.
This is thankfully newer build, so the basement's dry. Thankfully, have to run a humidifier though. Make sure things don't get moldy, but it seems to do the trick. So
we had a pool, an indoor pool, so that was kind of the problem. I think I would trade the pool for the basement.
Yeah. Huh, that's cool though.
It is until you see all that like greenhouse effect and the windows get stained and you get overgrowth in between the bricks in the house.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
And the other thing is it's a lot of maintenance. I'm not a maintenance guy. I know a lot of guys are. I'm just not.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's hard work, like all the chemicals, the treatments, and just the cost of doing that and all that stuff.
I noticed you were dabbling in the Zelda 2 fan remake. Can you tell us about what that was like?
Oh, that's cool. And I do need to finish that. So yeah, it's a pretty good overhaul of the second one. And it changes some things up. I think it does a really good job in terms of making the towns a lot more interesting. They do add some small kind of games in there, which really frustrated me and made me mad. So that was kind of frustrating, but the dungeons were pretty much seemed to be the same layout, but getting to them was a little bit different. The overworld map was a little bit different. They added some different touches to it that made it feel a little different, which was in a good way though. But it's definitely tough. I mean, Zelda 2 is tough anyway, but if you're not really sure where you're going or what exactly has changed, it definitely takes a little bit of a commitment. But the good thing is if you're familiar with Zelda 2, you can pretty much make your way through it. You're just going to die a lot. But but really good, really good. I wish I had the information with me because you can download it right online. Because I watched like Lack Attack, and he was actually playing the game, and that's how I knew it even existed.
I had a bunch of people tell me about it when I did a remake video. So yeah, I was just curious about it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's interesting. If you want to go back to like Zelda 2 for any reason, I think going back and trying that game would be fun. Whether or not you finish it or not, it's just a fun play. You're just kind of relaxing and playing games. Give it a try.
Yeah, and Zelda 2 is a nice quickie anyway. It's like 6 hours maybe, if that. So
yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Link's Awakening. So, where were you when you first played the game?
So, I never had a Game Boy. I wasn't really into handhelds just because I wasn't a fan of like the color of the screen in the Game Boy and all that. But I did have a neighbor that had a Game Boy, and he had a good number of games for it. And that's where I first actually had seen the game. Unfortunately, didn't put much time into it in the game at that point. So I didn't know too much about it. And really it was, I'm going to say, I really started collecting, and I used to have like quite a Zelda collection, and because I wanted to at least try a lot of the games. I was going to say, I want to try every game. And so what I did as a compromise is I was like, oh, I can play it on the Super Game Boy. I ended up buying the DX version of Link's Awakening. And I was really pleasantly surprised about the game because I always think of it as a kind of like Zelda side quest is usually how I typically think about it. Because when you look up the game and all that and how it's, takes place after Link to the Past, and how it goes is I believe that he was going for training on an island and he was coming back from the training when the storm hit and thunder hit his wrecked his boat, and the story goes from there.
Interesting. Training. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. At least information that I can recall anyway. So yeah, so really the first time I really dove into it, gosh, it could have been probably around 8 years ago, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I would say it was probably that long ago that I really played it to beat it. But first introduced was my next door neighbor when it came out, because the Game Boy was pretty popular. I remember back then. But yeah, his name, my next door neighbor, and actually was a good friend too growing up, Matt.
That's awesome. Yeah, that would have been 93 for the Game Boy,
93.
And then DX was 98, which is also the year for Ocarina. So do you know what year you first acquired it for your collection, or when you started to collect all the Zelda games?
Yeah, it would have, because, man, that's a good question. Gosh, because at one point I was going a little bit crazy with buying, with the collecting. So that's, yeah, shoot. I wish I could give you an exact year that I purchased it, because I just went crazy at one point.
Do you know like what consoles were around that time?
It would have been, because I know I feel like it would have been around the Wii. I can't even remember when the Wii even came out, but I remember having the Wii console, So I don't think the Wii U had come out yet.
So let's say like mid
Um,
2000s, maybe 2006 through 2010.
yeah, it could have been somewhere around there because I really started getting into collecting in 2007 because that's when I bought a NES for a buck, and then from there it kind of went from there. So yeah, probably somewhere in there, probably more at the 2010, I would say, probably
Mm,
ish.
okay. And then you said it wasn't until some years later where you really tried to get into it. So that's interesting. Why do you think that was that it didn't click with you originally?
It's that darn handheld because I don't know what it was. And maybe it was because I used to have like the first handheld I ever had was, what is it? One of those Tiger ones or something. It just wasn't good. And I don't know if I just get jaded like after that. And then just like where there were no like colors and stuff like that. And it's small compared to like just viewing it on the TV. I liked, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I was just like, man, I don't know. Nah, it's not for me. Cause although I did like, cause I remember the first game I played for the Game Boy was the Super Mario one. And I'm thinking, oh, it's a cool game, but I just didn't like the Game Boy enough to really be like, yeah, I'm going to put some time into this just
Mm.
for whatever reason, just not feeling the Game Boy.
When did you get a Super Game Boy?
That would have been, gosh, again, like probably around the I would say like around the 2010-ish area where I kind of went just crazy with kind of starting with the collecting, I would say.
So even then, when you first played it, did you like when you got the collection? Do you remember? Did you try it on Super Game Boy or did you try it on handheld?
See, yeah, and that's the thing too, because I did buy like a Game Boy and a Game Boy Color, and because I had the Oracle games there, Seasons and Ages, and but I again like I never really played it on the handheld. I'm like I'm gonna get. I just remember I'm gonna get a Super Game Boy, and I tried the Season and Ages game on the Game Boy Color handheld just because I couldn't. It wouldn't play on the Super Game Boy. I just again I tried to play those games on the handhelds, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. And I just like now I'm I just can't do it.
Right.
With just because like too with the Game Boy Color, I don't know. Again, my eyes are bad. I don't know if it was just the colors or whatever. I just didn't like the way it looked. I don't know. I think I'm just jaded with handheld. But but yeah. So I pretty much was like, I'm just gonna play this on the Super Game Boy. So I was able to play Link's Awakening DX. I wanted to play that one because of the added dungeon that they had, and so I really chose that one to play rather than the other Game Boy one.
When you played through it for the first time, what did you think of it?
I thought it was great just because the story was different. It's again like I think the genius of how they set up the games because with each game there's always that familiarity in terms of whether it's um, combat or enemies or it was dungeon style still. However, they had elements and actually again quite some different elements that really made it its kind of own thing. I mean, the story is totally different. Instead of Triforce pieces that you're collecting instruments, and instead of really killing an end boss, you're trying to wake it up. And And I always remember, because I think it was like halfway through or 2/3 of the game, you go into this shrine or whatever, and there's this mural that says that, what you're doing is basically an illusion. It's like, what? It's like, what? This isn't real? And then you're just kind of thrown off, and it's kind of like, all right, well, what's going on? So it kind of captivates your attention, and you're like, all right, let's see what's actually going on. And I thought that was really great about this game. So that, and then the ending, I really liked it. And there's multiple things, you can go over that later, of different aspects of the game that I liked. But I always thought it was a cool side quest. Like, I kind of just refer to as a side quest, and it's a really good game. I'm glad they remade it. I actually like the fact that they're...
Oh, sorry, go ahead. You first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I like the fact that they're actually remaking some of the classic games, just because it continues to make them relevant. And honestly, like I only watched a playthrough of the Switch version, and the changes. I mean, it's not many, if any, changes, but it made the game better and more up to date, which I think is a good thing.
I think this is maybe one of those examples of when not just Zelda stories, but like video game stories are maybe at their best, when they're short, sweet, and abstract, kind of leaving room for some interpretation. I've always kind of appreciated like the magic or like enchanting kind of quality of like, well, Zelda, but Link's Awakening too. Just this idea of the people on the island. And I think it's really felt in the Oracle games, which I feel it's a shame you haven't really gotten to play on the Super Game Boy with the for some reason, lack of compatibility issue. But I do think Link's Awakening does a really good job in a really like artistic kind of way, which I'd be happy to unpack later.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely.
So
like you meant.
No, you first. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like,
Discord.
but yeah, like you were saying, some of my favorite games are those where you're not really quite sure what's happening. They give you a piece of information at the beginning of the game, and it's, as you go along, they're giving you little pieces of what's happening throughout the game. I think that's one reason why I always go back to games like the original Fable, or like there's a series, the Legacy of Kain series. It's just, they don't tell you really what's going on. They'll give you little pieces of it, and then you can put things together if you're really, really in tune with it. If not, don't worry. They'll spell it out for you at the very end. But it's, when they're really well developed like that, it's nice.
So you watched the Switch playthrough. Have you done any dabbling in the game since that playthrough?
No, and that would have been a good idea, actually. The one thing I did notice, though, and maybe just because there was no sense in putting it there, but I could be wrong. I don't remember them putting in, or they kept out of the Switch version, he looked like a mouser to me from the Mario series, but like the guy that takes pictures, I don't believe that's in the Switch version. But that's the only thing I could really pick up.
That's a shame. And he probably is like that guy from Super Mario Bros. 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe not. But and they loved the tie-ins in this game. But I guess it made sense for the Game Boy Color because it had the Game Boy camera compatibility. Whereas, like, what is Switch gonna do? Let you share it to Twitter, or X?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I guess Elon Musk could take a picture of you.
Yeah, gosh.
And then post a caption or something, some stupid caption. Anyways,
hey.
We can move on from Elon.
I was going to say, you never know, they may have been able to kind of market that a little bit with something. Who knows? Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a lost opportunity there for Nintendo. Who knows?
True, yeah. Instead, they give us this whack dungeon editor.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not ready to talk about the remake. I still haven't bought it, but maybe one of these days.
Yeah.
What are your overall thoughts and feelings and memories, or strongest memories, with Link's Awakening?
Where I didn't really have too much of a history with it, like so deep-seated things, not as much, but there were a lot of things that I really appreciated about the game that I really, really liked about the game. So replaying the game, it was enjoyable to see these things again, that some of them I totally forgot about. But like the crossover stuff, like the one crossover thing that I forgot about that I really liked was they had Wart in the who's the final boss in Super Mario 2. He was in this game, and so trying to think of what he does though. I can't remember what he does in the game, but to see him there, I think he dances. Oh wait, yeah, I think it's for a song. It's for the song, because him and I think two frogs, they're like dancing around, and although I'm kind of jumping ahead than where I want to, but that was the thing about this game too, is things carried over to other games, because with Ocarina, like this is where you first learn how to songs that you would have to play in different parts of the game. So like this was really the first time you saw that, was where you'd have songs for the Ocarina. So that was really cool. I love it when you can kind of figure out like, oh, this is where this kind of started. Like, honestly, I feel like this is the first time where you really use the shield to kind of block things, where you didn't really, it was just like before you just face the enemy and hopefully the weapon or arrow hit the shield kind of thing. And this is the first time where you actually have to use the shield to do that. And I thought that was really neat. The owl. I mean, this is the first time you really see the owl in effect, and collecting items or objects, I should say, because in this you're kind of collecting seashells, golden leaves, and things like that, and that kind of carries over to collecting bugs or scatulas, things of that nature, like in other games, which kind of carried over. And maybe I'm kind of grasping at straws there, but I always thought that, well, maybe they got that idea really started with Link's Awakening. So I like doing like things like that, and it makes me appreciate like a game like Link's Awakening, even if it's not like deep seated in my gaming history. I can play it and like really appreciate those kind of aspects of it, and what it really did for the series, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's a very interesting origin point of a lot of staples. And regarding Wart, even that whole scene is kind of like hilarious. The song he plays for you sounds fucking awful. It just sounds like it's the worst one, and it's the last song you learn. But I laugh
bad
every time it happens. My Game Boy screen is flickering. They can't even get the animations right. And it costs you 300 rupees to learn that fucking thing. Dude, I was doing my playthrough on Link's Awakening DX, and I forgot you could steal the bow that costs you 980 rupees from the shop. So I spent 980 rupees, and then the next thing in my sequence was to go buy the song, and I had 0 rupees, and I opened every treasure chest. I was scrambling looking for rupees. I was so pissed. Oh my god. But it was so I'll never make that mistake again. But I just thought it was hilarious, that whole scene. And even that frog thing is a throwback to this game's predecessor, that some of the devs worked on for Frog the Bell Tolls. It's really not a great game.
Oh,
It's but it is a Game Boy Japan exclusive, and it has the same kind of like 2D top-down exploration where you play as a prince. That's why you see the Golden Leaf guy. His name's Richard. He's the antagonist in that game, and then there's a lot of frogs in his house there. But Wart kind of represents like the king of the frogs, and then he teaches you, I guess it's like the Song of the Dead, and it's kind of like revitalizing the history of this old game. Like this message in a like abstract message. I kind of just I really appreciate it. Some of the love letter elements.
That's awesome. Yeah, to have that kind of little history there. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Sorry. I was just going to say. Yeah. There are a lot of interesting things that made me laugh. Like one of my favorite things in this game, which had me going, is when. So you drop the blue chicken or rooster off at the guy's house that has all of them, and you come back and he's like holding on to it like up in the air, and he's like, "Oh, it's like, man, what? I wasn't expecting that." No, it just made me laugh.
Yeah, a lot of like good kind of like comedy. It's like a lighthearted kind of comedy. Even they don't want you to take it too seriously, for as serious as it seems. Like, oh, the world island's gonna disappear. But it's like, oh, don't worry. Mm-hmm. Like, Marin just falls off a bridge. Like, no, she'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, right? You're just in the wheel's dream. So it's not like, are they real? Are they not? I mean, dream world, who knows, right? Because at first, when I first played it, yeah. Because at first I was like, oh, man, I'm going to destroy this world. But then I thought more about it. It's like, well, it's just the whale's dream. So maybe it's not like I'm not like destroying this whole world.
Yeah, maybe it's not the story itself, but it's the friends you make along the way.
Yeah, good way to look at it.
I don't know.
I'd say. Yeah.
We can kind of unpack it. So, what does this game mean to you? And it could be story. It could just be its place as a Zelda game.
I'm glad that they remade it, just because I feel like it is. It's one of those games where it did something different, but it did it in a good way, did it in the right way. Where again, it has those elements that you're all too familiar with, but it's a different story. It's a different story, and it kind of gives you some break and towards of like any sort of like monotony of, oh, I'm trying to, how good of a hero am I? The princess keeps getting caught, like, kind of thing. So I think in terms of like the Zelda series, I think it's a really good addition, and it tells a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is
so
different,
I think,
right? It's like, it's like putting Mario characters in like every dungeon. In the overworld you get Bow Wow. You get Rock's Feather in the first dungeon, which is a new item, but basically introduces jumping into Zelda.
Mm.
And so I've always
that was a cool element to it.
Interesting. It's like it's not really like the old ones. It's like they're kind of like mixing worlds or something.
Yeah. No, that's a good way of thinking of it. I mean, especially too, if it's more of like a dream world, you can kind of do that, right? Kind of throw in some different properties in there, see how it meshes. But yeah, I did like the addition of Bao on the fact that you could kind of use him a little bit.
If you can like kind of chain break the game, you can take him to the end.
Oh, no kidding. Oh,
yeah. There's some sequences you can skip that like you have to return him if you do like the trade sequence, which you do have to do up to a certain point, not to the boomerang, but like at least till you get Marin to move the walrus. But you can actually like screen skip a couple of those segments. So I don't know. I recently played with him to the end. It was like breaking the
Oh,
game
no
though.
kidding.
And so like anytime like there would be a second
Yeah.
character on screen, like the rooster or the ghost, it would just look like a second Bow Wow that imitates their actions. So you get a bouncing Bow
Huh.
Wow, you get a like flying Bow Wow, like in addition to the Bow Wow that's already like next to you.
Oh, that's interesting. Didn't know, man, people can figure out some crazy things with games. It's pretty, pretty wild.
Yeah. I appreciate it though. I appreciate every time I play this game, it's like I get something new out of it.
Yeah. I do like the fact that though they in the remake, I'm just thinking of this right off, that they kept the phone, like the rotary phone and stuff like that. That guy was actually kind of funny to me. You wouldn't talk to you in person; you had to talk to him over the phone.
A little
I always
rivalry.
thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, something about the text even. It's like bring, hello. Oh, caught me at a bad time here. What do you need? Yeah, yeah. Just go to the South Lake. You'll be all right. Like,
yeah.
what are you stupid? Like, there's a freaking like arrow on the ground. Like, it's just he does make comments like that. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Shoot. Yeah, another good character.
Yeah. Okay, we can actually transition to the Switch version at this point. So you've only watched it, but I think you could still answer if you think it's a good remake or not.
I like the graphic upgrades. The music is good. The sound effects, like some of my favorite sound effects, actually in that game are like the birds chirping in the background and stuff like that. So those additions, I think, are really um, really good additions to the game. I think they pretty much. It seemed like because I've only ever played the DX version, and it seemed like really on like pretty parallel to that, except for like the dude taking the photos, if I remember correctly, because I don't think he's in the Switch. But other than that, it seemed to be pretty much the same thing as the DX game of watching it. But yeah, no, the just I mean the detail in the game and everything, it looks amazing in terms of that style of graphics and everything. I mean, that's the only thing is like, I don't know how the gameplay is, but the thing I do like watching that is my only gripe about Link's Awakening for the Game Boy Color and all that is the fact that you have to keep switching. You have to keep switching items and items. It's like, oh my gosh, that did drive me crazy. But like, at least in the Switch version, you can keep your sword and your shield, and then you can just change the like two other items. Like you have like X and Y, and then you have like so you can access a lot more items. So it's not so much pause and change items.
Yeah, I don't think Link's Awakening, or I'm sorry, not Link's Awakening, Link to the Past really felt as item switch heavy. Did it have more inputs, like A, B, X, Y?
It did have at least looking at it, looked like they had if they hit X, then they could set the item to X and Y. So that way, but they had access. I know they had access to the sword and the shield because you could see it on Link. But then also like you could see up at top to like X, Y, and then they had different items. So that way they could just push those buttons to switch. From what it looked like, I not having played it, I can't really give good information there, but it looked like you had access to a lot more items that way on the Switch, which seemed like an
upgrade,
a good choice. Yeah, for sure.
That's fair. Yeah, it's unfortunate for the hardware at the time. It's just the limitation, and it does suck. It sucks. Like they could barely fit enough text on the screen, so you'd be reading you'd read the whole line in like 2 seconds, and then you'd be inputting the next thing, just keep moving. You'd run into a pot, and then it would say like, you can't pick this up. You need a bracelet, even if you have the bracelet. It's like, I've seen this enough times. Every time you get a goddamn acorn, it's like, God damn it, another acorn.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. It is true. Yeah. Yeah, no, it looked like a really good version. Really good with all the really upgrades and graphics, music, sound effects. Again, can't comment on the gameplay, but it's cool. I did watch part of, because I try not to watch too many of them until after I do the interviews, because I don't want things to get like a. But I did like I think Games with Key commented on this, like the overworld kind of transitioned nicely. Like in the dungeon, you still would go like from screen to screen, but like in the overworld, it kind of transitioned nicely into like different areas pretty smoothly, which was kind of a cool touch on the Switch version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're both good for different reasons. Because in some respects, I don't hate the screen to screen style. Like that's very like manga aesthetic, and also it's a throwback to the original game, you know, panel to panel. But at the same time, the moving camera, not the fixed camera, is it is stylistically interesting to see the same game redone in that style, which was what I was thinking about. Is like, you know, you see some remake news sometimes, and it's like, well, what did they really change? Like, did The Last of Us need a remake? Probably not. But, you know, did this need a remake? Who am I to say? It's so different, and it's much more modern. It's much more like I don't know how to say this. It's like, I guess, more charming or something. And I think it resonates with a lot of people just for the liberties they took. So I can respect that perspective, that they really like revamped the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And sometimes it's a good thing. I always think of, and I'm going on a tangent here, but like Final Fantasy VII, if you go back and play that game on a PS1, oh dude, like those polygons and stuff, that's hard it's hard to look at. But still a great game. But having them remake everything is like, oh man, that's just so much better looking. But yeah, no, I don't know really where I'm going with this, but I like how the old games have its charm, but I do like how they're keeping like some of the classics, or what, you know, view as classics as relevant by doing some of the remakes. Yeah, you just hope they don't take what makes a game special and take that out of it. But yeah, I think looks like they did a good job.
Do you think that DX and the original are as hard to go back to as, say, Final Fantasy VII?
No. I think coming from that time, I think you have a certain expectation of games for that time. Like if somebody, and I could be like off base, and this may not even be true. Like I'm just thinking like maybe if somebody was not alive at the time or around within that time of gaming, they may not hold their attention as much, even if they're playing it on like say a super Game Boy or something, where they could play it on the screen instead of like the handheld. I'm not sure if they could appreciate it as much. I don't know. That's a good question, though. Because for me, no, but like for more like for newer gamers, I don't know. Good question, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say. If you're like a teenager out there, let us know, and let us know in the comments below if you could play the OG version or the Game Boy Color version and enjoy it. I think they could. I don't think this is as hard to go back to. And I think something about like Final Fantasy VII, it's a 40-hour game, you know, and you're looking at like first pseudo 3D graphics.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not. This is like maybe for a new player, maybe 10 hours, and everything like sprites hold up. Sprites look good. I don't think people would argue that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think this needed the remake the same way that other games like Final Fantasy VII may have, but I do think that the changes are appreciable.
Yeah. No, I'd go with that. Because the game itself, whether you play the old version or the new version, it seems to be pretty much, at least if you're playing the DX version, seems to be pretty much the same thing. Yeah, just if I guess the major thing would just be in terms of what you think graphic wise and things like that. But really, the meat of it's the same.
Yeah, and that's kind of a perk too. Is like so many remakes like really like change the game fundamentally, like from the ground up. Like Final Fantasy VII and VII Remake are not the same, but this Game Boy Color and the Switch one, it is the same game. It is. You're basically you're getting the same experience, just like in a different style or a different take on this. I don't know, even that doesn't sound right, but it's like either way, you played Link's Awakening.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly. It's the same game.
Where does Link's Awakening stand for you compared to the rest of the series and the other 2D Zelda games?
So with the other 2D games, it's really unfortunately it would still have to take like a back seat to those, just because again a lot of it's just like deep seatedness of the old games in my history, because I owned the first, second, and Link to the Past. They were they were some of the games I owned growing up, and they were some of the most played. So great game, but because of I don't have as much history with them, it takes a backseat to those. In terms of the series, now that's a hard one. That's a good one. It still wouldn't break my top five, although the difference between I feel like the top five is so minute. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that one.
What
Yeah.
what would it need to displace? What is your top five?
So the original one at number one, just because of even just the story, like I've told you before, just because it was the first game I ever bought with my own money, although my parents helped me kind of like help me with that because I didn't have all the money, but just even that experience buying my first game. So it's always going to be The Legend of Zelda for the NES, number one. Number two is Link to the Past. Number three is, I'm trying to think here because I'm going to go Majora's Mask. I know I'm one of these people that give the N64 crap, but like I love Majora's Mask. Then it would have to be Twilight Princess, and then Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link would be my top five.
I feel like I missed one. So you said it was Zelda 1 and then
Yep.
Majora's Mask. Was there something in between?
Link to the Past.
Okay.
Number two. And then Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and then Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link.
I didn't know you liked Twilight Princess that much. That's interesting. It sounds like it's not.
Yeah, the dark. I don't. For whatever reason, it's like the darker Zelda games. I don't know what it is, but I really, really, and I was playing that on the Wii too, and I didn't care for the nunchuck and stuff, and I still really love that game.
I hope that gets a Switch remake or something, or Switch port, or at least, it's a damn shame.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, do you have any topics that we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything we haven't um, really covered in terms of, let's see. I don't know. What do you think about the crossover with the kind of the Mario crossover? And because one thing I was curious though, maybe you know the answer, like because 93, so Mario World, because Yoshi shows up in this game, and so I'm trying to think. Do you know if Yoshi is in the Game Boy gray cartridge, like not like the DX, because the DX one came out later, so it makes sense why Yoshi's in there. But I can't recall because I don't think I ever really played the original. I just remember playing the DX one. Do you know if Yoshi's or if it's something else?
Yeah, I've played
In
this game recently, the Game Boy original cartridge, a bunch of times. I can confirm that is Yoshi. They don't really
Yoshi is in that
change
one.
much between versions. The only like real significant like changes cosmetically is besides the Photoshop and the color dungeon. In the dungeons, instead of owl statues with beaks, they have just like stone slabs, and you find like a missing slab. But Yoshi comes up and they add a piece of dialogue that says, if the mother's or the store is like, wow, you got the Yoshi, and it's like, yeah, he's becoming really popular in all the games these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he would have been in what, Mario World and Yoshi's Island at that point? Mario World 2?
Yeah, so that would have been, yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think, yeah, if there was any other game that he was in before.
And Yoshi's Cookie on the Game Boy? Or is it this NES game? It's just Yoshi or something, right?
I don't know. I don't know too much about Yoshi. I was just curious if that was, um, if he was in the original one.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. Yeah, because I hadn't really played that one. So okay, so if the owl wasn't in the gray one, so maybe the owl was introduced. So maybe it was first introduced then at Ocarina of Time. Then it probably would have been the owl.
The owl
first
is
introduced.
there, but it's just that in the dungeons you would one of the treasure chests would give you like a beak to an owl statue. They didn't have owl statues, but the owl is still on the map and tells you what to do.
In the map. Okay.
That's a good point. That is another like staple that you see like in Ocarina.
Yeah. Okay. Those I would think with it. Yeah, just the two things I was like really, I was thinking of just right now then. But yeah, no.
Yeah. I think I think it's random, but I like it, and they fit pretty well. Like Bow Wow, or this is a chain chomp, but they call him Bow Wow in this game. Having some function, like just as a companion, is really awesome. Like that's almost a throwback to like the Link to the Past, where like you have dudes that follow you on the overworld, and it's like kind of RPG like. Except Bow Wow is just like a monster. He just will demolish any enemies. Like having your first dog. Like that's so cool.
Yeah.
That to me is the best Mario edition in this game. And then in terms of enemies, I mean, like it is cute. They have Goombas that you can kind of jump on, some piranha plants that pop out of pipes. Kirby is in the Eagle Tower. Wart is selling you a song.
They have Shy Guys.
There are Shy Guys in Dungeon 2. Are there bloopers? I think there's bloopers in the side-scrolling sections.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's a good one.
And besides that, oh, there's like, I don't know if they're Gordos, but it's like in Kirby. There's those like spiky guys. I think you see them pretty early on in this.
I never, you know what? I never played a Kirby game. Maybe I need to try.
Oh, Dreamland is only an hour. You should just play that.
Dreamland.
Yeah.
I have to remember that.
Yeah. But it's a Game Boy game. But you could play it on your Super Game Boy. That'd be a thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think they
Trying
fit
to
in.
think.
It's not like it doesn't really change the story for me at all. I just think they're a cute addition.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought it was neat too. Just I just remembered like when you have to fight the boss underwater. That was kind of neat how you had to do that. That was different. Wasn't expecting
Yeah, the game has
that kind of
decent
boss
like
battle.
swimming mechanics, you know?
Hmm.
I think in Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, you couldn't even dive. So they introduced diving
Yeah,
to 2D Zelda in this game.
yeah, that's true.
And something about
It's
just
fun to
like
find those kind of things.
just something about just like that like 2D side scroller swimming and then just slashing your sword is kind of fun. I like that.
Oh yeah,
Just, you know, I've
definitely.
given some of the bosses some shit, but like some of them are pretty good. I think in terms of throwbacks, actually, here's a question. How do you feel about this game as a Link to the Past sequel?
I mean, it definitely like I mean, you think about where the enemies show up, like that stupid darn like whatever the heck it is, like worm thing, or like the I don't know what the heck it is. It look a bunch of ball like shoot that
Moldorm.
goes around and it hits you off hits you off the platform. I hate that enemy. But then like yeah, they have like the centipedes or millipedes, the jumping sand ones or whatever. I think I mean, it makes sense with some of the things they have in there and the fact that it was the game after that. And it's kind of like a dream sequence. I mean, it definitely makes sense that that would be a sequel to A Link to the Past. Certainly.
Yeah, it's almost like some recent memories. And they picked the first three bosses from Link to the Past because the Armos Knight, they don't do the 6 Armos Knight battle, but they have one that's
Yeah.
guarding that slab, which is pretty cool. They do have the Lawn Mola, the triple like worm thing that pops out of the sand. And then the final dungeon is Turtle Rock, which is the final dungeon in Link to the
Yep.
Past. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's enough crossover there that it makes sense.
Does it impact anything in terms of the story for you? Like in terms of your perception of the story?
Um, the fact that he's really um, going for at least the information that, like I found out about the game, like him going to training and then he's coming back to Hyrule when this happens. And so it's really kind of gives him like, you're not dealing with, you're dealing with the same Link, and that it gives him a little more substance, or at least in terms of story that you know about Link and him as a hero, instead of just like, oh, we're starting off at a different era, or we're starting off because Zelda get captured again, or something happened to Zelda, kind of thing. So I like that aspect of it. Kind of gives him a little, not much, but at least a little more depth.
Yeah, it is kind of
As
nice playing it like back to back, like just seeing like how it really does feel like it takes place directly after this game. I think that's missed sometimes when you play Zelda games kind of like randomly. You do get the
Yeah,
sense like I don't know if it's at what point like it like if the Dark World is just kind of like a figment of his imagination or something, and then like it kind of like corrupts the world somewhat, or like the Windfish or the ocean or something. Like So then he has these memories of like the light world bosses as like kind of like bad dreams, as nightmares even.
Huh. Yeah. No, I mean that's actually I never thought of it that way. It's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, and even the
Yeah.
idea of him like sailing, to for whatever reason to go find training, to go train for the next apocalyptic scenario, and he winds up in one.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, but I like that. I definitely like that idea. I mean, that makes total sense, and that's kind of cool. Like you mentioned the like the dark world and things like that. That's yeah.
Because even the nightmare
That
at the end, I don't know exactly what it's called, like the nightmare, the final boss battle takes on Aghanim and Ganon as forms. So
yeah.
there's clear reference to that battle, and even just his power.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. So no, it does have a little more. Just give it a little more depth to
Food
the
for
story.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. Now I'll have to play it. No, thanks. I'll have to play it again and just at least parts of it. So yeah, to view that again.
Cool. Well, I'm always down to kind of theory craft here.
Yeah, no, that's what's fun about the games, right?
Right. Okay, we can kind of wrap up here. Any final thoughts for The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening?
Yeah, no, definitely. If you're into the series, definitely check this one out. It's a definitely unique adventure for Link, and it's a great game. So we can have fun with it, sure.
It's a Zelda game worth dreaming about.
Hey, there you go.
It's a dream you don't want to wake up from.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Corey, for Maine-ly Retro. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed. We do have a couple other interviews we have done, and I would be happy to get you back.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Anytime. And yeah, no, if you decide to do a Philip CDI one, I definitely and that's the one thing this is why you don't like delete a channel or save your videos, because one of my favorite videos that I ever did, because I used to own them, I don't anymore, unfortunately, but like I was so interested in finding out like the development of these games that I came about it. I found some interviews that they did with the people that created the games, and I still have some of that information at least written down, and it's just fun to go through those like interviews and like, how did these come about, how did these happen, and how did they make them, kind of thing. So it's games themselves, I found the information that I found out more interesting than the games. I'll tell you that. But anyway, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
Videos may be gone, but always, the memories will always live on, and I'll be happy to have you back to talk about them.
Definitely.
All right, I won't torture you with a creative question this time, so thanks, Corey.
Yeah, no, thank you, because I'm horrible at them. I can't ever get these darn things right.
And I'm doing not quick on them anyway, so it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, shoot. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know where to find him. It's Corey from Maine-ly Retro.